Hi, my name is Tara Williams, and I'm here today with Jennifer Depute. She is one of our SMAS Warriors, and today we are going to just kind of have a little chat, learn about her story, and you know, just get some questions and her input. So, thank you so much for doing this, Jennifer. We really appreciate it, and I know that things have been a little tough lately. Um, so this does mean a lot, the fact that we are able to do this little video chat.
Yes, thank you.
So first of all, I was just wondering if you could kind of walk us, through your SMAS journey. Like, have you always been sick, or was this something that kind of came on?
Okay. So I've always really been sick since I was about 6 years old. I had a very rare, at the time, called Kawasaki disease, which you hear about more often now. And my dad always said, ever since I had that, I was never the same. And but we didn't really know what that meant. We just knew that I just got sick all the time. Had constant colds, had constant strep throat, had my tonsils removed at a young age. Just very bizarre things always just happening, and nobody ever, thought anything of it. It was just a joke. It was a literal joke in the family that every Christmas, oh, Jen must be up in one of the bedrooms, like at Grandma and Grandpa's house, sleeping, because Jenny was always sick. So it just kind of became like just this, that everyone just thought, oh, Jenny was sick. But then it progressed into finding out, let's see, it was almost 3 years ago-ish that I was actually officially diagnosed with SMAS, when in fact I had been diagnosed with it prior, but it was actually just found by a surgeon who was going through my medical records just for the fun of it. He was literally going through my records for the fun of it, and trying to find out why I had been sick for a year and why I had lost so much weight. And he had found on a record of, he was reading a scan, and he noticed, and he was familiar with at least what SMAS was, which was a blessing, especially where I live. I'm in the uppermost part of Michigan, in the middle of no man's land, where nobody knows anything. And he said, I believe this is what's called SMAS. And then and we took it from there. But that's kind of the short story.
So was it like notated in your scan that it was possible SMAS, or that there was a compression, or
Yeah, so what it had was, it was just notated at, there was I don't remember my numbers offhand because I've had so many scans and stuff, but at the time, he explained to me that they had the angle and the distance, along with some other information. And he explained then to me that that was what was called superior mesenteric artery syndrome. And he had only known about it just because he had come from down a much larger teaching hospital, and had come up here and was like he had been just hired as a new surgeon up here. And so he was just familiar with it, only because he knew that some of his colleagues knew about it as well, that he had, like, his residents that he had worked with down at the other hospital. So it was just something that he just happened to just know, just a little bit about, which was amazing. And then, of course, I knew nothing about it and didn't know what he was talking about. And of course, my regular, Jennifer's research mode. So,
Right. A little bit of panic mode, I'm sure.
oh yeah, yeah, because and oddly enough, the year before, is the paperwork it had also been found on, where on another scan it had been actually notated that it had my angle and my distance, and it was notated that I had SMAS, but nothing was further done. And that was a whole year prior.
Right, which could have made a huge difference in your medical journey. I mean, because that is something we have learned, is the earlier that we have a diagnosis and a treatment plan, the better outcome people can possibly face. I know that's not always the case, but it can increase your odds of a better prognosis.
Right.
Have you always been small, or did you like steadily lose weight? What's the lowest weight that you've been? If you're okay with answering that, I know sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. So I've always been on the leaner side. I've been an athlete my entire life, figure skater, runner. Those are the two main ones, figure skating and running, although I did a lot of other sports. But I've always just been athletic. And so I've always been, more of an athletic, thinner build. I was 5'8". I'm now like 5'7". So I've always been, around the like 130, 135 mark.
Mm-hmm.
That was just kind of a general weight for me. However, in January of 2018, I had a severe kidney infection. And then from there, I lost 30 pounds in about 10 weeks, and just kept getting told, come back and we'll weigh you next week. Come back and weigh you next week. Nothing's wrong. You're okay. Keep eating. Try drinking this, that, and the other thing. Try drinking insurers. You're fine. Do you have an eating disorder? You must have an eating disorder. You're not eating. It was just all this three-ring circus. And I knew something was majorly wrong. Nothing was staying down. I knew something was drastically wrong, and just kept getting dismissed. So then I was down to just over 100 pounds, and was then hospitalized for over 2 weeks to try to figure out what was going on. But it still took another year to figure out really what was going on. What was the one big contributing factor of why food wasn't.
And had they actually paid attention to that scan and the notation in your scan, you wouldn't have had to suffer for a whole nother year.
No.
Do you have other compression syndromes? What other comorbidities do you have?
Several. The list is very long. Currently, I have so all the compressions, so 5 of them. Yes.
So SMAS, MALS,
PCS,
mm-hmm.
NCS,
mm-hmm.
and what am I missing?
May Turner with your
yes,
left iliac. Okay.
May Turner. And
do you also have gastroparesis?
I also have gastroparesis. I also have loin pain hematuria syndrome.
Okay.
I have 46 diagnosed.
Wow.
Diagnoses.
Wow.
Currently, and then 5 that are quite certain, but have not been officially diagnosed because we just either you can't get in to see the specialist you need. It's a 2-year wait to get into a geneticist that you need to see, et cetera, et cetera. or I can't finish some tests
Right.
in order to be diagnosed with such, but I have all the symptoms or exhibit, etc.
Right. So, is Ehlers-Danlos one of those possible diagnosis? Okay.
No, Ehlers-Danlos, actually, I was diagnosed this past year with Ehlers-Danlos. Yep.
And
Go ahead.
sorry, I know
No.
that you've also been on like a feeding tube, TPN, that sort of thing. How do you feel like those have helped with your nutrition intake and everything like that?
So, I started off with, in the hospital, I started off with a NJ, so a nasal jejunal tube. I failed those feedings, meaning the feeds sat in my intestines and bloated my intestines up very large to where you look, like you're 7 months
Right.
pregnant and you're in extreme pain and you are miserable. So we tried that. We tried various rates. We went down to the lowest rate possible. We tried various formulas, down to the very broken down to like what they would give a baby. And I could not tolerate them at all. So then they had to go to what was called TPN, total parental nutrition, which is given either by a PICC line through your major vein, or a chest line. And so I started off with PICC lines in my first year with the TPN, and I went through 4 different PICC lines in my arms because I kept getting infections in them. And so then I was changed to a Grasham central line in my chest, and that was in November of 2018. And so I was fed TPN through my chest, which then is fed into your through your superior vena cava and is emptied into your right atrium of your heart, and then it is in your bloodstream and then is fed to your organs through your system through your bloodstream. I was then on TPN until September of this year. TPN is a lifesaver, but it also comes with many complications,
Right.
Side effects. The biggest one being you can get infections, you can get sepsis. There's just so many things that come with it. Liver damage, a lot of organ damage or organ failure, or etc. So I was doing really well on the TPN until this year. And then my body has just decided it just doesn't want anything any longer, and it's rejecting everything, from surgeries, from procedures, from lines, from ports to the TPN. So that was stopped in September of this year.
Okay. What surgeries have you had for these compressions?
So the surgeries I've had, the one major one I had was called the DJ surgery.
Okay.
Now, I had that in March of 2019. And that was done with, also I had at the time was what's called a derotation, and the clipping of the treats ligament. And they found, which is common that I didn't know at the time, but we didn't know at the time either that I had Ehlers-Danlos, but I was full of adhesions, and the surgeon had to remove a remarkable amount of adhesions at the time of that surgery as well. Scar tissue, all kinds of stuff in my gallbladder. They took one look at my gallbladder and it was very diseased.
Right.
And in fact, they thought I had cancer of the gallbladder as well.
Wow.
It was all due to these compressions,
Right.
because they're blocking off the blood flow to your organs. So that was the major surgery, and that was open surgery I had. So I have a scar from my sternum down past my belly button straight down. So that was a full open surgery. I then ended up having complications from that surgery and ended up spending either in the hospital or a skilled nursing facility for 6 weeks before returning home. And then while I was in the hospital in those 6 weeks, my stomach completely stopped working. And then I had a G tube placed in my stomach, in my abdomen, strictly for draining and venting of my stomach. And so I have had that since, and that was March of 2019. So almost 3 years now. And it is only clamped for medications twice a day. Otherwise, it has to remain open or I will violently start vomiting. Now, I've also had just several procedures, like I've said, for my lines to try to port, which didn't work. But those, so many G-tube replacements. We've also tried we tried a GJ tube and tried to start J tube feedings again this past summer or early fall. And I failed those again. We thought we would try them again just to see if my intestines would start working at all. And it did not work. So I had to go back in for surgery just this past early September, end of August, and have the GJ tube changed back into a G tube.
Right.
So I'm back.
I know it's so confusing with all the different,
yeah. There's this separate, the G goes to the stomach, the J goes to the jejunum, which is the small intestine, and there's a GJ combination where the J tube is fed through your G tube, so you have 2 in 1, and that's the one that I had gone to, and then we went back to the G tube. So yeah, it's very complicated. And then you have all the nasal ones as well.
Oh,
too.
yes. And trying to get them all straight. I think that was one of the most confusing things when my mom was first diagnosed, was trying to figure out what all these different tubes were and PICC lines and TPN, and it is confusing. And so that's why we're trying to work on a non-medical terminology kind of dictionary for people, so that it is a little easier to digest.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. If you could go and say anything to these previous doctors or naysayers, what would you tell them?
Well, I think some days I would like to tell them things I'm not allowed to say on here, if I'm going to be honest. But I really think that doctors in general, whether it's doctors, specialists, surgeons, really need to put their egos aside and be open-minded, and also be willing to listen to patients, because we know our bodies better than anybody else. And when I would be constantly told it's anxiety, it's stress, it's IBS, it's constipation, it's diarrhea, you just have anxiety, you'll be fine. It's an eating disorder, you need psyche valves, you hear that over. Then you start believing that and thinking, do I have something wrong with me? Do I have an eating disorder? What's going on here? You really start doubting yourself, and that is no good either. And I just really, it's so refreshing when you do find a doctor who is open-minded, who's willing to talk to colleagues, who's willing to call other clinics, other cities, other hospitals, other states, and get information and try to learn more, or try to say, hey, I know nothing about this, but can you help me, or find someone who does, and not just say, I don't know, good luck, and don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out, because I have that over and over and over from very well-known, reputable hospitals.
Right.
And that is so frustrating as a patient, and heartbreaking.
Right.
And I just, I think a little more compassion, a little more empathy, and a little more to be open-minded and willing to work with others and listen to the patient. And we don't know everything. Nobody does. And I'm the first to say that I don't know everything, but I do know my body. And I did know that something was majorly wrong, and nobody believed me,
Okay.
Including family and
Yeah.
friends.
And we've heard that unfortunately a lot. And to touch on eating disorders, even if someone did have an eating disorder that caused this, that's still no reason for doctors to turn them away or blow them off. So it's
Absolutely.
it's just sad. And it's sad that family sits there and goes, well, if you just ate more, that would fix your problem.
Yes, I was told constantly, why aren't you eating more? You just need to eat more. Just you need to eat red meat. You need to eat this. You need to eat that. You need to stop thinking about it so hard. Just start eating. Just start eating. And it's like, wow, you don't think I want a cheeseburger? You don't think I want some pizza or sushi or whatever it was,
Right.
It's not that easy. And, and I struggle with, the family members and the friends who constantly tell you that, and, or they look at you and say, you're so skinny. Why don't you just eat something? What's your problem? And it's like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not sure what else you want me to do.
Right. Or the flip side of, oh, I wish I was that skinny. And it's like,
oh yeah,
people have said that to my mom all the time. And it's like, oh yeah, you can be the skinny. She said, I'll trade bodies with you in an instant so that you can live a day in my shoes and, just deal with what I'm going through. I would love to have the weight on, so people don't understand that sometimes being thin also comes with pain and other medical issues. It's not by choice or anything like that.
You're absolutely right. That is a huge one, where so many people will say, what are you doing to lose weight? Or what are you doing, to be so thin? And it's like, well, unfortunately, I have these disorders or these diseases, called gastroparesis or called SMAS. And And they're like, oh, oh my gosh, could I have that? And I just look at them and think,
Right.
wait, did I really just hear that?
Right.
I,
Because
yeah,
they
you don't
don't
want it.
know how many people, like the gastroparesis community has lost just this year alone, and all ages. I mean, SMAS doesn't discriminate age. You know, it
Age,
it
age or
knows no
gender,
bounds. Right.
no, age,
Age,
gender,
gender, race,
ethnicity,
anything.
race, anything. No, no,
Yep.
exactly.
I know. And we do see it more in females, but that's kind of because of how women carry their fat and everything like that. But it doesn't mean that men can't get it. And
Exactly.
So I do want to touch on, if you're okay, how you have stopped all treatment and, where your journey is headed now.
Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be hard,
I know.
but it also has taken a little bit of an interesting turn just recently. So, I have, um, I was hospitalized in September. Sorry for the tissue.
No, don't be. I'm already looking around like
So in September, well, we had recognized back in the summer that because I had weekly labs for the last like almost 4 years. Because when you're on TPN, you have to be monitored closely for your electrolytes, your some of the main ones, potassium, magnesium,
right.
Sodium, I said magnesium, your lipids, your liver enzymes, your kidney functions. There's all kinds of things that they have to monitor every week. And so then if they see a pattern of something falling or increasing, then they change what's called the recipe, I call it, of your TPN. And so then they will calculate that out and change it, and then keep, monitoring you. And so I did wonderful for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And then we started noticing that my lab started just kind of being very weird. And so we started having to change my recipe a lot. And that is not a common thing. Once you've been on TPN for a while, your body has acclimated to it, and it's not common to have to change it. Every once in a while it may, something may go a little weird in it and you have to change something, but it was not common. And so my GI specialist just kept saying, something isn't right here. And so long story short, my body was just rejecting everything. It wanted nothing to do with anything. Like I had said, I was having to have so many G tube changes and everything because my body was like literally spitting them out of my body, spitting out stitches, spitting out the tube itself. It literally was just saying, get out of me. And so in the first week of September, I was unaware, but I, at home, instantly had what I thought was a heart attack. And the ambulance came and got me, and I was admitted to the hospital and started having, at home prior to going into the ambulance, started having what the doctors are arguing over what they're called, but I'll call them spasms. Some of the other doctors will call them non-epileptic seizures. They are what look like a seizure, and they are treated as a seizure, but they will call them spasms. So I spent the night in the ICU getting, first I spent many hours having these spasms over and over, and being repeatedly given shots of Ativan to try to stop them. And it took many hours, and they finally stopped these spasms and found out that my potassium had completely tanked. And that is why I felt like I had a heart attack, and started the spasms. And so it was then in the hospital, I was in the ICU, and it was then decided at the hospital that my body was no longer taking anything, and that the TPN was going to be stopped because it was no longer helping me. And there was, in fact, they thought perhaps hurting me then at that point. So it was stopped, and I was discharged home on hospice. So I now have been home on hospice for 8 weeks, 9 weeks, I believe, 9 weeks. And in those 9 weeks, I have lost 28 pounds. I am now 98 pounds. I don't remember, being 98 pounds. I would think it would have been middle school, maybe, age, maybe 12-ish. I don't even remember. I'm 47 years old. But I don't ever recall being this low in weight. And I am taking an obscene amount of potassium. I'm taking 100 units oral through my through my G tube. I'm orally, and that is an insane amount of potassium daily to be taking to try to keep my heart to keep beating, and to literally not stop. So but my potassium is still at a critical low. However, it has climbed a little with being on the potassium in the 9 weeks, which is a bonus, which means that it's working sometimes. And because we never know if my intestines are absorbing. That's the problem with my compression syndromes, as well as my gastroparesis. As long as my colonic inertia, my colon does not work at all. Just doesn't work. So along with, the compressions, which I guess we didn't talk about, is a lot of people have the malabsorption, and their intestines don't absorb what they take in. And then if you add gastroparesis into that, if anything will go from your stomach to your intestines. That's the other thing, is every time you drink something or eat something, it's a crapshoot as to whether your stomach is going to let it go through to your intestines or not.
Or just sit there until you're able to expel it.
Yep. And then I have to unclamp because I will start vomiting. And if I don't, and then, it comes out. And a lot of times, you see all your medicines and your food or your drink or your whatever is all coming out in the beautiful rainbow colors that it comes out in. So, I can then tell my doctors, yes, X, Y, and Z was in my drain bag today, or came out, and I know it did not go through. Just because some, like potassium is a flaming bright orange. So I know whether it went through or not. However, just in the last 2 weeks, my labs have been very odd. And so now we're trying to figure out what's going on. My weight has stalled at 98 pounds for 2 weeks, roughly. And my labs are very different. We even said one day we thought they came from a dog off the street because they were not, what mine have been doing. And so we're not sure what's happening. So, of course, that puts a little bit of a optimism in my head, thinking, are my intestines trying to wake up? Is something happening that we're unaware of? And, is there a possibility I can pull out of this?
Right.
We just don't know.
But that's amazing to have the positive outlook instead of letting the fear take over. And
Yes,
you have so many people in the community praying for you and just praying that you pull through, because 47 is too young and you've got your grandbaby. And
yes. I was told on discharge, when hospice came to the house, then I was told on September 15th or whatever it was, I believe it was 15th, I was told I had, at the rate things were looking, I had 3 weeks to roughly 2 months to live. So I have now surpassed that by a week. So
that's why we call you guys warriors. You're gonna power through.
Yes,
and
yes. And I told my kids, right away, I said, hospice isn't about going home and making a choice that you're going to either live or die. And a lot of people don't understand that, or a lot of people think hospice is you're going home to die.
Right.
You've chosen to die. That is so far from the truth. I did not choose to die. I'm choosing to live the best way that I know how, and to fight with everything I have in me. And hospice was the way that all of the doctors decided was the way that I could best get treated and get resources in order to warrior on and live the best way that I could, and to fight this the hardest way that I could. And so, and I look at it and say, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. He has a bigger plan. He's not done with me. And there's a reason I'm still here. And whether that's only for a few more weeks, a few more months, or 20 more years, there's a reason I'm still here. And darn it, I'm going to fight it until I can't. So that's what I'm doing.
And we love you, and we're behind you every step of the way. And we've seen people come off of hospice. We had a patient down in Florida that was on hospice, and she's out living her life now. She still has some issues, but then we have Sean, who I am so thankful to have been able to interview, and he was told, you may not live to see Christmas. And this was like 3 years ago, and so the blessing of the unknown for me is the fact that I don't leave things left unsaid with my warrior family. I tell them every chance I can, I love you, you're strong, you got this, reach out to me, whatever you need. And I'm happy that you are on hospice versus nothing, because like you said, you have more resources available to you now that you didn't have, that you did need. And so it's like, maybe this is just what your body needed, that extra little to kind of keep going. And,
Yeah. It's like
so,
I feel like
right,
it's, right now I have the mindset of, and my family, my kids too, we're being realistic about it.
right,
But on the other hand, we all remaining positive. My
right,
kid, we had a few meetings, myself and my children. I have 3 adult children, and I have one grandson who's almost a year and a half. And they are my life. I have lived for them. I was a teenage mom. And so that is who I live for. And that is who I fight for. Not to say that I don't fight for, other family and, my immediate family and friends, but my main fighters, are my kids and my grandson. And we said right away, this is, and it was hard to explain to them, because they didn't understand. They said, you're going home to die. And I said, no, that's what you don't get. That hospice is not about choosing to live or die, because there is a gray area. You don't just get to pick. Nobody does. There is a gray area there. And that is what you work with. You work with that gray area and you fight with that. And that is what we are doing. And, I'm looking into and have been taking various supplements and, just trying to just see what my body's capable of doing and acting as if this is a restart. So that's what we're trying to do here.
you will
And I can't
constantly be in our
thank you
prayers.
guys. Yeah, I can't thank you guys enough. The nonprofit itself, the grant, getting a grant is just so humbling. And so I can't even thank you guys enough for everything you guys have done for me. And just, your mom, just as humans, it's so much more than, this SMAS community is so much more than just people and patients and advocates. We are a family. Every single one of us, even if we don't know each other, we cry when we see their stories and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know you. I just, my first time, like, I haven't even seen your face. I'm seeing a message or a cry for help on something saying, help me, I don't know what to do. And, and I'm crying for that person and I'm just seeing a typed message. I haven't even seen a face.
Yeah.
I've seen maybe a picture of their dog, it's like, what the heck?
Right, because
Wonderful.
we know what they're going through. And if it's someone
Right.
new to this journey, we know what they're about to face. And oops, knocking
Right.
things over. So it's, in some ways, it's how I felt towards my little sister who's 10 years younger. Is like, look, I've been through this, so I'm trying to give you advice so that you don't make the mistakes that I've made along the way. And so I think that's how we feel within this community. And
Yes.
there are people that I've met online that I feel like I've known them my whole life. And then there's other people that, they become instant family. And, Michelle Boggs being one of them. And just having that opportunity to have a bonus grandmother for my daughter. And, I'm thankful for this community. And, no matter what happens, we're going to keep pushing forward. And, hopefully we can continue to educate these doctors and maybe they not have these issues.
And I think, it's important to stress that with myself, just, for the SMS community, with myself, having so many comorbidities, that's where the problem lies, because these comorbidities not being caught many years ago, And so what happens is they become a snowball effect.
Right.
And so, and a circle where it's never ending. And, you know, all the compressions, and then those lead to system failures. And so then, you know, like my voice is not normally like this. This happened when a few years ago, almost 4 now. But it's because my neurological system decided to shut down.
Okay.
So, and I think that's important to stress that I am not a common,
Right.
SMAS warrior. I have a lot of comorbidities that were unfortunately,
Right.
you know, I knew something was wrong, but nobody would put a label on it, or there were labels, and I did have I had surgery for an endometriosis, and I had a surgery for a partial hysterectomy. And, you know, the doctor's saying, well, wait a minute, you know, why do you have all those adhesions in there? Did you have a C-section? No, I did not. Well, that was a warning sign that I had EDS.
Right.
And nobody picked up on that. You know, we can go back years and years
Right.
of this. And having all these red flags. And, you know, I had a endoscopy back in 2004. Okay, 2004. That said, why didn't you follow the protocol for the endoscopy and the colonoscopy? And I said, I did. What are you talking about? And they said, your stomach was full of food. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been your indication right there.
So that was that I had gastroparesis and or SMAS. And instead they just stuck me on a medication and said, you're just having problems with your stomach or something. That was 15 years prior to being diagnosed with GP.
Right. And your story, like I said earlier, could be so different had people looked into it. And it's unfortunate that we hear this time and time and time again, you know. And again, my mom is one of those where we went back to one of her earlier scans after, you know, we've learned what to look for, and clear as day, we can see it. And
Yes.
I didn't go to med school, you know. So one last thing before I let you go,
Sure.
to the SMAS community, what is like one piece of advice that you could give them?
Biggest piece of advice I can say is literally listen to your gut, and pun intended. And I'm saying that because then the next piece of advice that comes straight from that is to advocate for yourself, or if it's your children who are going through it. Because a lot of people in the community it's their children, maybe their teen children, who are going through it currently. And if you think something just is not right, get that second opinion, get that third, fourth, fifth opinion, get your scans, get a hard copy of them, have them in your hands on a CD and the report printed off, have them both. Send them to doctors, send them to surgeons. I mean, I don't care what you have to do, send them, bug the doctors and say, and just don't take no for an answer. And then the next is to really lean on the others in the community and any support you can get. And you may not find it in your family. Your family may tell you you're crazy. And it's unfortunate, but it happens. But don't give up. Just keep fighting until you get answers. And, with that's going to come a lot of research, hours upon hours. Your life can be consumed by it, but it's worth it. So you are worth it. You are so worth it, or your child is so worth it. So I think that's the best. That's kind of was a 3-part thing.
It's
But,
okay.
I think that's the best advice I can give.
Well, I truly appreciate you taking your time, and I know I've probably really drained you, but I do appreciate this. And I, had I not been able to do this, I would have been kicking myself forever. And we wish you all the best health and sending all of our prayers and love. And just know we're fighting for you. We're fighting with you. And we love you.
I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.